Alright, so this is going to be part 3 to what if Asta had sunshine. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
They took it to 10. Let me tell you how I come through with the 1-2, kicking shit like kung fu. Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
So before we start this what if, I'd like to apologize because I didn't upload for 2 days, and I usually just take like a day off, but yesterday I couldn't really upload because I was helping my sister move out of her apartment, so it took like all day to do, the moving, so I wasn't able to record any videos. So I hope you guys understand that, right? And I want to do like a quick shout out to a few people. The first one is going to be Annie-Ax Vortex, I believe that's how you say his name. Basically, in one of his videos, he shouted me out for giving him the idea of using like art in his videos for like drawing for his what ifs. So I would like to give him a shout out. And the next person I would like to give a shout out to is actually a long time supporter of my channel. He's been there since like near the beginning, and that's actually Kid Zeus. You could probably see him in most of my comment sections. He gives me a lot of what ifs, and he gives me a lot of ideas for how my what if should go. And recently, probably like 2 weeks ago, he started his own channel where he does what ifs also, and he's actually blowing up. I think at this time he's around like 500 subscribers, so he's growing really fast. But I like to give him a shout out, since if I'm gonna give someone a shout out, I might as well give someone else who's been there since near the beginning and also has their own channel. So yeah, with that being said, let's address some other topics. The reason why I gave Asta moonlight magic instead of something like moon shadow or anything like that is because not only does it sound better, moonlight, than like moon darkness and moon shadow, I wanted it to have a connection still to the sun, because I know that the moon itself does not produce its own light. It's actually a reflection of the sun's light. I know that. That's why I chose moonlight instead of moon darkness, so it still has that connection to the sunlight, but it's just getting reflected off the moon. That's why I chose it. So yeah, so it's still an opposite, but it's not a complete opposite, you know what I mean? And I got this from a comment saying that instead of Asta's magic being sunlight magic, it's going to be celestial body magic. It's just that Asta didn't really unlock it, and he didn't really get the full potential, and that's why he only thinks he has sunlight magic. So with that being said, let's get into the like actual what if. So last time we got done with the attack with Saucy Village. So in this one we're actually gonna do the dungeon. So we start off with Yami and Magna and Noel and Asta in the same room, and Yami's laughing, and Asta kind of questions this. He says, "Is it okay to laugh? I mean, someone died." And this is when Yami would say, "Well, we can't bring him back, so there's no reason to be sad." And Magna would say, "Yeah, I forgot the village. Oh wait, no wait. Never mind. Scratch that. Because in this what if he doesn't die." So he would laugh and say, "Good job, kids. Looks like you had a hell of a run-in, right?" So Yami would say, "All right, kids, here's your paycheck," and it would be that bag of gold that he gives him, and he'd be also be like shocked, like, oh, like he'd like, wow, this is almost 2,000. I forgot what it's called in Black Clover, the currency. So I'll just call it gold, right? So he's like, he's like, wow, this is almost 200,000 gold. And he's like, Magna gives Asta the idea to give some of it to the people back home at the church. And what Vanessa says next is, well, don't give them all the money, save some for yourself, right? And that's what Asta does. He writes a letter and he gives a sizable amount of his earnings to the church. So what happens at this point, Vanessa actually says, hey, how about on your day off tomorrow, we go to the market and we could get some items for you guys, especially you, Noel. Maybe we could find something that helps you with your magic and controlling it. And this is when Yami would interrupt, says, I don't know about that. If you're gonna shop, make it quick, because we actually got a request from a noble. And this is actually the nobleman who actually helps transport, but because he never fought he fought Asta, he's actually going to ask for Asta's help instead of Yuno's. So in this one, they go to the market a lot earlier than they do in canon. So I'm gonna say that everything goes the same. It's just that Asta was a lot faster when it came to capturing the bandit, because he has transportation magic too, so he'd be able to easily catch up. And not only that, but his physical strength's a lot higher than it would be, since he has sunshine. So the small old lady that turns out to be the Wizard King would be looking at Asta, since he's never seen magic like this that like transforms the body with the time of day, right? And he would have heard about Asta since he basically insulted all the captains at the selection ceremony. I think that's what it's called. So we get later on in the day, around sunset, and this is when Asta becomes a lot more skinnier. Not completely, he still has some muscle, but it's a lot later. And he's using his chariot, his Apollo's chariot, to kind of what's it called, pull himself and the noble. And I think the two people that would be with him would be Noel and Vanessa. So we get to see them participate in this. So they would be flying through the sky, and this is when the nobleman would ask about Asta's personal life and how he grew up. So he gives him the excuse that he's going to tell his children later on. Also, guys, I like to say this. I want to know what's your guys' favorite what if series from me. Like, you could tell me down in the comments and then tell me why. Just so I know, because I know what's my popular. I just want to know the reasons why you like certain ones over others. And I want to see myself improve, not only with my kind of dialogue, because near the beginning of my channel I did a lot of and like, right, basically stuff like that, right? And I still do it, and it's a kind of a tick that I have to kind of stop. But I think I stopped saying a lot, but I still say things like right. So I am trying to stop that, but you guys can tell me down below. So let's get back into the actual what if now. So the the dialogue exchange between Asta and the noble would be similar to the ones that uh, Yuno and the nobleman have. So it just basically would be like, so where did you grow up? Maybe it's your environment that made you so strong. Well, Asta, kind of being annoyed, would be like, well, I grew up in Hajj village. And the nobleman would be like, Hajj village? Isn't that where the first Wizard King's story about how he defeated the demon came from? And Asta would be like, it's no myth, that there's an actual like skeleton still there with the skull and everything. And the nobleman would be like, wow, maybe we should visit sometime. And this is when they see this giant kind of smoke cloud, not smoke cloud, a gray dark cloud in the sky. And this is when Asta would basically give the lead, or the ropes that are like connected to the horses, the 4 horses that are on the chariot. He would give that to Noel and says, Noel, hold this and try to keep it steady. And this is when Asta uses his like broom to kind of fly up to the gray cloud in the sky. So what he would do is he would be like, sunlight magic, cruel sun, right? And he would just throw it at the smoke, and then he'd be like followed by pride flare, and he would like lift his fingers up like how he does in the anime, and it would just explode everywhere. And this is when the smoke would clear, and a few of the enemies that were in the smoke would actually fall, because the explosion was so big. And the rest that were there would either, some of them I think would run away, and the others that would stay and fight would really be beaten pretty badly. All the ice mages, their ice would get melted. All the wind mages or wizards wouldn't be as effective because the heat that Asta's giving off, because he's using his like stored up heat, so he could use a little bit more power, because without it his attacks are a lot weaker. So when he went into this fight, he used a little bit of his stored up power, so he's slightly more buff than usual than his like normal sunset kind of body. This is when Vanessa would notice that they're not actually going for the nobleman, they're mostly focusing on Asta, and she sees the kind of necklace that all the bandits are wearing, which is like a skull. So after this fight is done, the nobleman actually requests to actually go to Hajj village for a little like pit stop. And Asta or Vanessa would be like, well, that's kind of a big detour, are you sure you want to do it? I mean, someone of your kind wouldn't really want to be seen in like a village like that. And he'd be like, nonsense, I want to know how this future Wizard King lived. And they eventually agree, since he is the person paying them. So they go, and they go to the church where Asta had lived in. But the difference is that Asta in this one does not see Sister Lily in a romantic light. He sees her in more of a motherly kind of light. So if you don't know why, you could see my first video how I explained it. So yeah. So I think Noelle would get kind of jealous knowing that Asta was around this kind of attractive woman for most of his life. And that's kind of the extent of it, right? Asta wouldn't really see her in that way, and wouldn't really act the way he does in canon. So they would have like that hot potato like dinner, and this is when the water was empty in the nobleman said he would go and fill it, and Sister Lily would be like, no, I got it. And the nobleman would be like, well, it's chilly out there, so how about you use my coat? And she says, thank you. And she goes to fill it up, and this is when the bandits come and attack. So this is when they figure out that it was the bandits, and Asta says, I'm going to go save her. But Vanessa is like, we can't. We need to finish our mission first. And I know that she wouldn't normally say this, but she's kind of saying this to kind of trick the nobleman. And Noel be like, Vanessa, what do you mean? There's a person in trouble. And Vanessa would be like, yeah, I get that, but we need to do this. Just let the local authorities handle this, right? So Asta would be like, nah, I gotta save her. So he would just go on his broom and kind of head in that direction where they were at. So with the fights with the bandits, with the water mage kind of trying to drown him, basically what the mage would be like, he would say like, how does it feel drowning, right? Because he'd be covered all in water. And then this is when Asta would be like, what are you talking about? And he could see the heat coming off of him, kind of evaporating the water around him. And this is when Asta would be like, I wonder what's the worst way to go, burning alive or drowning. Or yeah, he would say that, and he would kind of do like that small cruel sun, which is called setting sun, and he would just kind of hit him with one of those. And this is kind of like knock out the bandit. So most of the fights with the bandit go pretty easily, since he's still pretty strong even at night, using less magic than usual. So what would happen in this one would be Asta would be put in that situation where one of the bandits has Sister Lily, and he would be like, if you come any closer, I'll burn her pretty face. And Asta would try to, he wouldn't move. And this is when the bandit would say, give me your grimoire and I'll let her go. And Asta would be like, what do you plan to do with my grimoire? And he's like, I don't know, maybe sell it or maybe even burn it. With that, you won't be able to do anything. You'll get kicked out of the knights, magic knights, and things like that, right? And Asta kind of almost activates a spell, and this is when the mage would be like, you think you're fast enough for me not to hurt her? And Asta's like, I'm not gonna give you my grimoire. And the guy's like, are you serious? Do you really want this girl to get hurt? He's like, you really think you're gonna attack me? And then this is when Asta would be like, I'm not going to attack you. They are. And this is when a thread that was around the guy's hand actually gets pulled, and the fire goes onto his face, and it was actually Vanessa. And with that, the guy recoiling from the pain and kind of stepping back, this is when Asta would kind of come and save or go in front of Sister Lily so she wouldn't get attacked, right? So the way that the Vanessa and Noel were able to get the noble to confess was basically they just threatened him, right? It's the Black Bulls, so they don't really care about the reputation, so they just basically threatened him. And what happens in the anime still happens, where they take him to the I think it was the Magic Investigation Bureau or something like that. But basically they find out his father, which was a congressman, was actually doing shady deals. So Asta also gets a star for this, so they have 2 stars, which would make the total of stars -29 instead of -30 like it is in the anime. So we cut like a day later, and this is when the dungeon is found, and the Wizard King requests for 2 different night squads to go and check it out, which is the Black Bulls and the Golden Dawn, with and Asta being in each one of the different squads. So it's still going to be the same team with Luck, Asta, and Noel, and the other team would be Klaus, and Mimosa. So that's how it would be. So what they do is they go through the normal kind of like opening where the dungeon's at. Instead of using a lantern, this is when Asta just using a small cruise sun, a setting sun, to kind of light the way. And as they're walking through, this is when Luck actually sees a brick that's different from the others, and he actually pushes it, and he finds the entrance to the actual like dungeon part, where all that mana kind of warping the space there. So looking at all this kind of like mana, all 3 of them are kind of surprised. Even Asta, since in this one he can sense magic, so he's very he's surprised about how much mana there is in the room. And then this is when Luck comes and tells him like, hey, check this out, and he steps on one of the bricks, and this is what activates a trap. And Noel gets scared because it almost hits her. And this is when Asta just uses his divine axe Rita to kind of slice it, and he basically overwhelms the magic spell with his overwhelming like mana. So it basically cuts through it. And this is when Luck activates a lot of traps, and Asta just keeps on doing the same thing while Noel gets scared. And Asta would tell Noel, like, do not be afraid. These traps are mere child's play, right? And then this is when Luck actually senses a strong magical presence somewhere. So he goes and leaves him to go check it out. So Nero is still with him, since she's there to kind of make sure that he gets all the magic stones and stuff. So Noel and Asta are walking alone together, and Noel's kind of flustered because they're alone, and the only one with them is Nero. So they start walking further, and then this is when Noel activates a trap, which is the that kind of plant monster that has like acid in its mouth. So in this one, it's a lot easier to take down since nature kind of magic, its natural weakness is fire, and sunlight magic has fire in it, so it will go down pretty easily. And this is when the Golden Dawn come through, and would have a conversation with Asta, and Klaus would be like, what are you doing? Let's not get involved with this riffraff. And at this point, Asta would be like, riffraff? What do you mean? Can't you see I am the one that's above all, including your captain, William Vengeance? And this is when Klaus kind of puts it together, and he realized through to the kind of physical description that this is the man who insulted the top 3 captains at the Royal Knights selection. Not Royal Knights, the Magic Knights selection ceremony. So he's like, are you Asta? And he would be like, well, yes I am. Is there a problem with that? And he would be like, yes there is. You insulted our captain William Vengeance when he graciously gave you a commoner a chance to be on his squad, and yet you threw it away like it was nothing. And Asta would go up to Klaus, and he would kind of look down on him, and he'd be like, do you think I need this guy? Do you think I need your leader to show how great I am? And Klaus would kind of get mad at this. He's like, what do you mean? Of course you do. He is the number one knight squad. He is the number one magic knight squad, and he's going to be the future wizard king. And this was when Asta says, that could have been true if I didn't exist, but with that, his dreams are crushed. I'm going to be the future wizard king, and that's it. That's my final say on the matter. And this is when Klaus would be like, hold on, wait a minute. And Asta would turn around and would say, listen here, Four Eyes. Since I've joined since I joined the Black Bulls, I've already gotten 2 stars. So, how many stars have your team? Have you gotten, And since, didn't go on that mission with the Nolan, he hasn't got any. And would basically say, at this point, we still have 0. And Asta would be like, that's what I thought. I'm going to make them, I'm going to make the Black Bulls a better squad than even the Golden Dawn to prove that I'm better than your so-called captain. And then this is when Klaus would get very angry, and he would be like, alright, you want to prove that you're better than us? How about we have a race to see who gets to the treasure first? And Asta would be like, alright, let's do that. So, Mimosa would be seeing this and be like, wow, this, for a commoner, he has a lot of determination, right? And they would have that introduction between Mimosa and Noel, and Asta would be like, oh, so you're Noel's cousin, I'm happy to meet you. And he would shake her hand since they have that connection through Noel. So Mimosa would use her magic to kind of have a map of the dungeon, and this is when they go off and go for the door so they could get there first. And Asta and Noel would be like, well, how do we get there? Asta would be like, I don't know if my chariot could fit in here, but we could try. Let me just remove 2 horses from it, because the chariot itself has 4 horses onto it, because that's how the myth of Apollo's chariot is. It has 4 horses. I forgot their names. I didn't really remember them, but yeah. And Noel will be like, alright, that solves the issue of transportation, but how do we actually get there? It's not like we could just follow them. We would lose. So this is when Nero kind of guides them through everything, right? And it'd be a lot faster than it is in the anime, but this is when Asta feels the magic of luck, and he's fighting someone. And Luck at this point is fighting that it's the Diamond King's Shining Generals. So what they would do is they'd be like, looks like Asta would go and try to help him because he doesn't really care about the contest. So he'd be like, all right, let's go help our fellow squad member. So they would go in that direction, and this is where Luck is fighting that smoke mage. And this is the point where the sun is getting lower, not completely to sunset, but lower in general. So this is when Asta meets up with Luck, and Luck is having a really hard time against this guy since his smoke magic is kind of sucking out his mana, right? So what would happen is Asta would be like, alright, look, let us handle this for now. And Luck would be like, no, I need to do this on my own. And he's like, I need to do this so I could get my approval of my mother, since he still has that kind of idea that he needs to keep on winning. So what happens is Luck goes and like starts fighting him, but Asta joins the fight and says, if you're gonna do whatever you want, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And when Asta joins the fight, this is when the smoke mage gets a little scared. So he does that cloud of smoke around them to kind of make it where they're all like surrounded by the smoke and can't really see where he's at. And it's getting harder for them to track him, and he becomes a lot faster because of this. So it's hard to hit him with any projectiles. So what Asta does is he uses one of his spells called Solar Singularity. And if you don't know what this is, we used it in the last part, the part 2. We used it there with Yami's black hole and did a combination spell. So basically what it does, it sucks up magic. But if there's enough magic, it'll make a red giant, and this will actually explode, sucking any mana or magic around it. And if there's enough mana, then it actually will create a white dwarf. So this is what Asta does. So he makes a solar singularity. This sucks up all the smoke magic around him and makes a giant, red dwarf, or not red dwarf, a red giant. And this explodes, sucking any magic that was around it. Like, not magic that's inside people, like their mana, but like magic around, right? That's around them. So all the magic that was there was gone. It just got exploded and dispersed. So the smoke is cleared, and this is when Asta uses a Cruel Sun against the mage, and this knocks him out. So the mage still gets away just how he does in the anime, and they go to the treasure room. They try to go there. So when they get there, they find out that the Golden Dawn is getting attacked by another mage. And this mage is actually Mars, the person who has mineral magic and fire magic together. But they don't know that. They only see like the kind of minerals that he's doing. So Asta comes to help, and he takes out, his divine axe, right, to kind of chop down all the clones, right? And he fights, when he goes to fight the kind of giant's version, or the Mars within that giant, like, kind of suit that's made out of different minerals, I think it'd be kind of hard for him, since he's used so much magic so far with that singularity spell, and then followed up by a red giant. I think that would take out a lot of his magic. So Mars would just keep repeating the same phrase over and over, that he was made to destroy the weak. And Asta would be like, I don't think that's a fair thing to do, because compared to me, everyone's weak. So this is when Asta would kind of use his divine axe to cut through the kind of armor that he's wearing. And after that would be done, he would use a setting sun to kind of explode on him, so he would knock him out, right? And this is when they Klaus he would use his binding magic to lock him up, and Asta would be like, are you sure that's enough? And he would be like, are you saying my my binding magic is not enough. And Klaus would be like, it doesn't matter, I still have his grimoire. So injured mage like him wouldn't be able to escape. And Klaus at this point is kind of shocked about how much power Asta has and how physically strong he is. So they would go through all the or they would see the door that's there, and Luck would be like, it's made out of magic. So Asta would be like, all right, and he would like kind of buff up a little bit more because this is around sunset, right? So he would use his divine axe to kind of do like a few slashes, and this would kind of break down the door. He would have to like overwhelm that door with his magic, right? So they would go through and they would check out all the different magical items, and this is when Nero kind of directs Asta to this kind of golden thing that's on the wall, right? And this is when Asta kind of touches it, and it opens like a little department, and this is where he finds like a scythe, and he goes and grabs it, right? And scythes are two-handed, right? A one-handed scythe is called a sickle, so it's two-handed. So he would grab that, and this would kind of like, his grimoire would open up halfway through, and it would be a chapter 2, and this would be moonlight magic, and his kind of grimoire overall would kind of change. It would have like more of a yin yang kind of a design to it. I also got that from a comment. So yeah, and the scythe would kind of go into it, just like how Asta's swords go into his grimoire. So the divine axe is actually still like a physical object, right? So I think for this kind of like weapon, we will go with the name Crescent Scythe Artemis, which, if you don't know, there's 3 gods in Greek mythology that are connected to the moon. One of them is Artemis, and the other one's Selena. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And she has her own version of Apollo's chariot, where it has to do with the moon instead, right? And I gave the name Artemis to the scythe because they're both like the axe also has a female name, which is Rita, and so it kind of makes sense. If you have like a better name, then you could comment down below, but I would want it to be in the same naming style of the same way as the axe, with like a woman's name at the end. So if you have a better idea for the name, then you could tell me down below. As everyone's checking out all the cool stuff that's in the dungeon, this is when Mars actually comes back, and you see the grimoire that Klaus was holding actually fly towards him, and he's in that kind of giant armor of mineral. So it turns out that he has 2 types of magic, which is the flame magic, and he's using flame recovery magic on himself, and he also has mineral magic. So Asta tries to attack, or before that, this is when he actually attacks Noelle gravely, or injuring her severely, right? And Mimosa, not having that much magic left, she can only use a different healing spell, not the cradle, but the kind of one where she wears like that kind of dress. So what happens is Asta gets pretty mad because someone just attacked his own squad member, so he goes in for the attack, right, with his divine axe, but it doesn't do as much since it's like sunset right at this point. So he does a little bit of damage to the user itself, but he's getting healed because of his flame recovery magic. So when Asta gets knocked back, right, he's like, if any damage I'm doing to him is getting recovered really fast, so I need some way to put out his flames. and as he's thinking this, the other three get trapped in minerals, and still gets what's it called? He still gets the wind spirit. So what happens is that Asta is like, all right, I need to. So I want to see what this new spell does, and he's like, moonlight magic, crescent, scythe, Artemis, and this is when he pulls out his kind of scythe, and because of this, his body actually shrinks, and the heat that he had was kind of gone, and it's stored in his grimoire, and he feels very cold. So it's basically the opposite, right? And this is kind of the reserve, because I think Asta would have two pools of magic to pull from. One would be his sunlight, and the other one would be his what's it called, moonlight magic. So one side would be, he would just have two different pulls, right? He can't pull at this point, he can't pull from both of them at the same time, and he can't like transfer magic to the other one. So he would use his scythe, right? And he would kind of do those the same slash that he did with his normal sword, but it would be with the scythe instead. And this is when, everyone would be shocked, since they thought his magic had to do with more of a, sunlight. And they're all confused, like, how is he using moonlight magic, right? Because he would be loud when he says this. And I think Mars would probably get near one shot, not completely, but as like Asta is being distracted, seeing on like Noel's well-being, right? This is when Mars would use that giant sword against him, and Asta not really having enough time to react. This is when Yuno breaks out, and he actually pauses time using the wind spirit, and the wind spirit actually breaks the sword. And with that being done, this gives enough time for Asta to retaliate, right? So as everyone's kind of getting healed up, this is when the dungeon starts to kind of break down, and they don't have enough time to save Mars with them. So they escape the dungeon, right? And Mars still gets saved by the smoke wizard, or the smoke general. And Asta, at this point, I think I'm gonna change it from canon and say that it's actually sundown, so the sun's completely down. And he would go around and ask if everyone's okay, and he would ask Noelle first, and she'd be like, I'm pretty alright at this point. Like, there's only a few like scratches left. And basically Asta would be like, nonsense, and he would use his healing light, or healing sun rays, that he does that in the first part. He still has that spell, right? So he would use this on what's her name, Noelle and Mimosa, to get their healed up. And Asta would kind of be really tired because he used up most of his like sunlight magic, not like the stored up energy, but like the mana pool that he had. So yeah, so Klaus would apologize to Yuno and Asta for thinking less of them just because they're commoners, and they would have that hug. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna end it at this part, and then I'm gonna continue with the rest on a different video. So, like I said at the beginning, sorry I couldn't upload because I had stuff to do, right? So I'm gonna try to do 2 uploads if I can, because this video itself is already pretty long. So I would also like to say, those shoutouts like I did before, Anti-Axe, Vortex, and Kid Zeus. Follow my Twitter so you could ask me what ifs directly. I'm probably gonna do a poll in this video so you could check, tell me your favorites, what ifs and why. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,